Welcome back to the 150K podcast. I'm your host, Joe Graham, where we take your dreams to six figures and beyond. Today, I have with me Jake Anderson of Podcast Radio. I forgot.
Podcast Marketing Radio. You almost got
Podcast
it.
Marketing Radio. See, that's bad. But it's all good because, Jake's going to help us today with podcasting and a bunch of other stuff. But Jake, for people that don't know you, tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into podcasting and kind of this whole business entrepreneurship thing.
Gosh, it's been a long journey. I technically got started in entrepreneurship in 2008. So we're 13 years in now. Of course, some of those years I'd say the first 4 of those years were basically me just failing and trying to figure things out and doing a lot of things wrong and having a partnership that failed and just nothing but grenades dropping around me. And then all of a sudden in 2012, I figured some stuff out. I started an event lighting company and it took off. I ran that company. And when I say event lighting, specifically, not like the big concerts and festivals, which is like, it's a niche in itself. I mainly did lighting for like upscale weddings and corporate celebrations. And we had like chandeliers and like all these fancy decorative type stuff. It was more like a design for a room. So very niche down. I had that business I started it I got started in 2010. I started the brand in 2012. I had a bad partnership that I had to get away from. I ran that from 2012. I sold it December 2nd, 2020. It was a liquidated sale. And that was kind of the final exit, which was unfortunate in some ways and fortunate in others. And this all kind of ties in the whole podcasting piece here. So it was unfortunate because I, had grown this company. I had about 18 employees. I actually lived 3 hours from the business, which I say that because, I was out of the operations. Like I wasn't in the day-to-day anymore. I was actually in more of like the strategic visionary roles specifically with that company, which is, I think, what, most entrepreneurs aspire to reach towards. Now, I will say this, just because you get there doesn't mean it's all sunshine and rainbows. Like there's definitely headaches and there's definitely challenges and I was still in a dark place. So I wanted to exit, even though I was there was a lot that drove the decision to exit that business, which I started that exit in 2019. And then going into 2020, special event companies and COVID and pandemics don't really play well together. Right. So right in the middle of me selling, or I was almost about to sell, or signed a purchase agreement with this buyer. Like we were like a couple days away from getting that all inked up and ready to go. And then the whole economy, that's when all the shutdowns started happening. It was like middle of March. Ooh. And threw the deal off, went off the table. And, fast forward into the December 2nd, 2020, I basically gave the company away. I didn't take anything. The only thing I took with me was like the little bit of cash that was in the bank, and they took the assets and liabilities. It was a stock sale, but I think it was like $100 is what I got, because there had to be like some number for the stock price. And it started at 325,000. So went from that to 100, from the pandemic. That put me in a really dark place. I was dealing with I was in the ring with some pretty strong demons during that time. I was very angry at the world. I was, oh gosh, I don't even know how to describe it. It was just tough. I mean, I felt like a failure. I felt like I wasn't worthy. There was just all these like crazy emotions that were circulating. I had been studying kind of like in the digital marketing world for a little bit, kind of thinking like, what's the next chapter? I had done some podcasting, but I really hit the pedal to the floor on podcasting when all this was going on, because podcasting gave me this outlet to have conversations with people like Joe and people who are aspiring to do better in their life. And it made me feel more like there was some hope in that, how it is. You surround yourself with like people that have strong mindsets and big visions, and they're driven. You absorb that. It rubs off on you, and it makes, so it was a kind of like a coping mechanism for me. And I just realized the power that it had with network building. I really got into listening to a lot of podcasts too, going on guests, going on other podcast interviews. I just fell in love with the medium and the content creation experience, probably more so than anything. It's like, posting stuff on social and stuff is fine and dandy, but it was all like, that was always like forced content for me to post on social. Podcast doesn't feel forced at all. It's like,
right,
I look
because you can just talk.
Yeah. You just talk and just be you and tell your story and share and riff and it's fun and it doesn't feel like work at all. And I'm like, this is my medium. So I decided to own that and just dove as deep as I could into podcasting since that time. And, once I exited the business and on December 2nd, that's when I really got more serious about finding ways to really create like a business around it and actually take a bigger role in that space. So
gotcha.
In a nutshell, that's me. That's my background. Yeah.
No, that's good. And you mentioned a lot of different things I think entrepreneurs go through. So you started a business doing the lighting and you started out and it had a huge evaluation, things are going good. And then something you didn't realize was going to happen. COVID comes and it crushes it and you exit out and you go through that dark space. So before we get to the podcast and all, how did you, because I know a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners and people deal with this, how did you get out of the dark space? I mean, did you like talk with people? Was there books? Was there a way? That intrigues me because normally that's, how did you pivot from there?
I think it was a combination of things. And I'll kind of start with a macro level view of it and then go down to a micro level. So macro level was having hope, really trying to stay as positive and hopeful about the next season. I knew I was like exiting a season in my life. Rough exit, nonetheless, an exit. And I knew that this was temporary. This wasn't here to last. So I focused mainly on, instead of like the final chapter being this horror story that it is, I was like, I'm just going to start reading the next chapter. And that's why I got into podcasting too. I was like, this is the next chapter, like talking to these people, being around these people, like doing things in this space, like this is the next chapter. So rather than focusing so much on the problem or that I was going through, because there was a lot of it was just out of my control.
Right.
That was the thing. Like I felt very out of control with that business. There were so many things. This kind of goes back to a lot of stoicism and like a stoic way of thinking, like, focus on the things you can control and not the things you can't, because the things you can't control are just there. They're going to happen anyway. So you may as well just focus on the things you can control. So that was huge for me. I was like, okay, I know, because there's a lot of things too. It wasn't just the pandemic. It was also, I had taken money from the SBA for EIDL or the emergency, whatever that acronym stands for. They just like, it was that loan basically is like, all right, you're going to take this money to help your business to survive. Well, the trade-off is we're going to put handcuffs on your business. So any decision you want to make has to get approved by the SBA, which is already bottlenecking has zero support. Yeah. So if you need, like things like if I wanted to move my office, I had to get approval from SBA. I didn't have any control over that. I mean, I'd sent letters. I always stayed on top of it, but it was just, they cost me a lot of money because I was burning capital all this time because I couldn't lay people off, because they're for certain reasons. I couldn't do that piece. So anyway, I'm starting to kind of stray off here, but there was a lot of things I couldn't control. That was just one of those metrics that was creating a disaster, but it's like, I can only control so much of this. So rather than focusing on that, I just let that be. I did what I could with it. And then everything else was like, okay, we know this is going to end at some point. Let's keep our focus as much as we can on what's the thing that is to come after. Right. Podcasting, network building community online. That's the space that I wanted. So that's really where I put most of my attention. So that helped a lot. That's like the macro piece, right? Like that's like the big picture. Like I know I'm up on the mountain, I can see, out in the horizon, and I know where things are going. So I'm just going to keep focusing on that stuff and not the stuff down here that's just a horror show. Right. So that's the macro. Micro is like, what can you do every day to keep yourself balanced? So it's like, you're going to have moments where you get really stressed out. or you don't feel very motivated, and all the pain around you just starts to latch onto you, and it kind of sucks the life out. So it's like, how can you get past those? Like, those are like the little micro challenges that you come across every day, or, you get that phone call and it just puts you in a bad mood. Had one of those earlier today, actually, matter of fact.
I hear you. It happens. It definitely, it happens. I think that's just in life and business. And I like that you broke that down. You have a vision of where you're wanting to go. Maybe it was a fuzzy dream. It wasn't like set, but you said, hey, I want to get into podcasting and doing all this. And then though you still, even though you're an entrepreneur and had the business, still had to go through the day-to-day. This sucks. Sometimes life happens. It didn't go the way I wanted, but I'm going to keep focused and just moving forward little bit by little bit by little bit. So what made you choose podcasting? How did you even go from lighting, which is a completely different industry in a lot of ways, to, podcasting?
Well, before I did lighting, I was a financial analyst examining banking institutions as a regulator. So I tend to, if I'm going to make a pivot, it's a hard pivot.
Banking, lighting, podcast. Yeah, that's three different things.
And in high school, I cleaned carpets for Stanley Steamer, which today is probably one of my favorite jobs I've ever had, by the way. But that's another story for another time.
Well, funny you said that. Right out of high school, I worked for a steamer company cleaning carpets. So we could talk about that much. Yes.
Oh my gosh, I've had so much fun with that job. I was anyway, yeah, it was fun. It was like you're out and about and you're different homes. There's a physical side to it, but I just have a tendency to, I'm very open-minded to opportunity. I know that at a fundamental level, there's certain skills that I always try to advance or to work on, like big ones, like communication is huge. How you communicate. There's three ways I look at communication, or like when you say something to somebody, they hear what you say, right? Like in a podcast, people are listening to this, they're hearing what I say. But what does that mean? It's like when I bring my voice up and I start talking like this versus when I bring my voice up and I start talking, like, it feels different, like the feeling, the emotion. Then people, they see what you say. So if I say, and this is video, I don't know if you do a video version, it doesn't matter.
We do.
Joe, okay. So Joe's looking at me right now and I say, Joe, get out of the room. Or if I say, Joe, get out of the room, it feels different, right? Different emotion. How you communicate, you write the words you say, copywriting. Like, I'm always like trying to work on those skills of communication as much as I can. And I think that podcasting just scratched that itch for me, where I was like, this kind of communication that I have with people in this medium is super aligned with me more than anything I have come across in such a long time. That I can remember it. So I found the passion for it. And it's like, as long as I can find the passion for it, learning the how it all works together has never been, I won't say it's never been a challenge for me, but if I love what it is, I'll figure it out.
Right.
I will figure it out. If I love what it is, I will figure it out. You can learn just about anything. And even when I would hire people, I was like, I know that I can teach you whatever you need to know. I just need to make sure you're the right person coming in here, that you're willing to learn, and you are connected with the brand, and you reflect the values of the brand, and you have that drive, and you have those characteristics. It's like, so I try to maintain those characteristics of who I am: being driven, being passionate, being forward thinking, having integrity with myself and what I do. And then everything else from there, can be learned, just learn skill. So maintaining my foundation has always been really critical to being able to shift from things like banking to lighting design for, special events, to now podcasting. And then there's like a Web3, which is kind of scratching the nerdy side of me and the financial side of me a little bit, because it's like building creator economy is kind of starting to tie into this mix. So I just love to create, and I enjoy it, and I love connecting with people. And at this point in my life, that's what I want to do. That's where I want to put my attention. That's where I want to focus, and it makes me happy. And so, yeah.
No, I like that. I like that a lot. I actually got into podcasting because I do sales. So talking to people and interacting with people. And then I had some friends say, hey, can you come talk about this? And once I actually got on and started being on their shows, I'm like, that's pretty cool. I'd rather do it from this side and ask people questions, and then I can learn things. So that whole communication thing came back there. You did mention something because I liked what you're doing. I train people on sales with this about the tone of your voice and changing it from getting softer to get them to lean into getting more demonstrative with your voice and all. That's like a huge sales technique. You do it naturally, but and a lot of people don't even realize it. That whole communications thing is so important. So you mentioned Web3, or what was that at the end?
Yeah, it's all the rage.
Okay, so full disclosure, I've barely heard about it. So what is this thing?
Okay, so in full disclosure on my end, I'm still learning about it. I'm very much so. I'm a newbie, but I'm actually doing pretty well in the space for being a newbie. And I want to, and the more I learn about it, the more I fall in love with the idea of it, the more I buy into the macro belief of it. So basically, Web3. All right, let me to learn about what Web3 is. We got to talk about Web 1 and 2 because there's the path here. So we have been going through, but it's accelerating. It's almost like the industrial revolution of our time, right? It's like a digital revolution that's happening where, with Web 1, it was more about this is like the times, think like mid to late 90s, early 2000s, before social media, right? When people could go online and they could search for information. They can find websites, they can go to chat rooms, and there can be a little bit of connecting. There's email, so now we got electronic mail. That's Web 1. So think like websites, search engine, that email. Okay.
Yep.
Then social media came about. And now people, like Web 2 is basically people can collaborate, like what we're doing right now. This is very much so a Web 2 type activity, getting on Facebook and building an audience and community on Facebook, connecting with people, building networks, like all the social media, YouTube, podcasting for that matter. That's all like your Web 2 kind of advancements in technology. Web 3 is all the blockchain stuff. It's crypto, NFTs, and which is funny, being a bank examiner, like kind of really diving into this, I will tell you, I would be the first one that when I would hear about this, that would tell you this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life. I think it's ridiculous. I can't believe people even pay attention to it. Now that I've actually looked into it and I look at what creators are doing and I understand the utility behind it, it's like, now it's all I want to look into. I'm like blown away by the whole idea of it. There's actually, and I'm going to give you some examples because we all know what like, it's like, well, why you're in podcasting? What are you talking about cryptocurrency for? Like, what does that have to do with anything? It's like a parallel economy that runs with everything that you typically see every day. And the thing that really kind of gave me that epiphany or like moment of, oh my gosh, this is insane, was there was actually a specific podcast interview. This was like a recent thing that really kind of took things over the edge. When I started yield farming and staking, and I was like, wow, I'm like making more money doing this than anything I think I've ever done in my life. And it was like instantaneous. It just took me doing some research. That was like the first thing. I was like, wow, I can really do well financially here. And then the second thing was when I started looking into like how this can all play within this economy that we're building. And like, why do we have all these altcoins? Why is there like thousands of coins? Like, how in the world is somebody going to keep up with all that? Like, none of it made sense to me. And then there was a podcast episode I listened to, and it was a guy named Gary Henderson. And Gary had created, he has like a community. He's got like a clubhouse room. He's got, coaching and consulting, kind of that coach consultant. I got a community. I'm a thought leader. I'm a published author, kind of doing all those things. Well, if you want to hire Gary, you can't pay him money. Like the only way you can pay him, he has this Gary coin, which is kind of funny. It's like Gary coin. It's like $20 a coin. That's the only thing he'll accept. And I'm like, that's interesting. I wonder why. Like, how does that work? Well, if you go and you look up, if you go to Gary, I'm promoting Gary here, but it's to kind of pull things together. And I think you, if you're listening, like, and you really want to learn, like, go look at this, and this will kind of start tying things together. Mm-hmm. Crypto needs to have utility for it to have any value, really. Like there's like all the little meme coins out there, but like this is an example of like something having utility and value. So for Gary, he's got his whole ecosystem. And if you want to be part of it, you just buy Gary coin, and it's an asset. It holds value. In fact, right now it's $22 a coin. So I listen to this podcast, and it's like gary.club/coin. And I see where I can buy his Gary coin at $20 a coin. And I'll scroll down a little bit and I see, oh, well, these are things I get access to depending on how many coins I hold. So if I hold 5 of these coins, then I get to be, I get access to private channels in his Discord. And every day, every morning, he does coffee with Gary, and I get to be part of that.
Because you have 5 coins.
Because I have 5 coins, because I bought into his ecosystem. So because I own 5 of these coins, this is his asset that he's created, then I get to be part of it. And the value, when you have it set up like that, where the utility is driven by rewarding people and creating incentives for people to buy into basically your community ecosystem and buying these assets, you'll see the price go up. So to be able to determine the actual validity or the performance of the communities, you can actually look at the price. It's a feedback loop. So if the price is going up, that means more people are buying into Gary coin. That means there's more people that are happy with it. If they're happy with it, there's more investment that's happening. But this is the thing that really, I think, like kind of broke my mind with it, was he was like, listen, he's like, if somebody wants to like get access to my stuff, they buy the Gary coin. And because I'm a coin holder, I can stake it. I can, turn it into or use it as an asset to reproduce money for me to make a living off of. Right. Like, cause you're like, okay, well, how do I actually make a living off this? How do I create, some kind of a paycheck out of it? And everybody has different reasons or purposes. Some people might just hold on to it, but you can also cash it in. But the thing is with this, it's like, if for me, like I bought 5 Gary coins, like $120. Now I get access to all this stuff. But if I gave him $120, that is gone. Like $120 is gone. It's to him. I don't see it anymore. I bought an asset. So if I want to get out of his ecosystem, I just sell my Gary coin and go on and move on to something else. So
before we dig there, because I got a bunch of questions in my head, so I just want to make sure. So this is almost like he's making his own monetary system, but giving you value to where you can get into his ecosphere if you own these coins. If you decide to sell them, whatever value you're there at that point, that's what you get. Am I understanding you correctly there?
Yeah. And it can be, when you really dig down into the technical aspects of it, it can get a little bit complicated if it's something you're not familiar with and you don't really understand how like the blockchain works and how tokenomics work. I mean, and I'm trying not to be like overwhelming in that matter, because even for me, there's still some things that I'm still learning, but the basis of it is, I think that would make sense for anybody that's listening, is that you essentially create like almost like your own little economy. It's almost, and I think Gary Vaynerchuk, who's really big into this right now, he's like, you basically create your own IP, like your own, like you are the intellectual property. So like when you sell, like he'll do NFT drops or non-fungible tokens, or which I used to think is like, why is that people spending all this money on a JPEG of a dog? Well, it's because it has utility to it. Like if I own that and that's in my wallet, I can get into events that they're hosting only if I have that in my wallet. So I get access to things. And it's so with this whole, like, again, like kind of this whole economy that he's creating, and I'm using him as an example because he's actually a really good person to look at. I'm able to get access to the things that he does by buying the coin, and the coin is what supports everything that he does in his community. So the more he supports and the more valuable he makes it, the more people are going to want to buy the coin. But from a consumer standpoint, like me as a person that bought it, I paid $120. I got 5 Gary coin. I go into his Discord. It just connects they use a platform called Rally, which is like the underlying asset that gives the value. So you get Rally, and then Rally connects to your Discord. So I just put in like it's like put in like / join coin or something like that. And I did that, and it just read my wallet and said, oh, you got the 5 Gary coin. And it's like all an automated process, and it moves me into all these tiers of advancement. And so it's like, now I've got access to him even more. And I've got an asset to get in, and it's actually yielding me money because I get a stake off of Rally every week. So it's creating passive income for me. So it's like, imagine, like I look at this, like, why would anybody ever use fiat anymore to go to enroll into these things? Because with fiat, when you pay the money, it's gone. It's an expense. With this, you're buying an asset that can grow over time. If you want to get out, you could sell it. If you, it's also yielding just like an interest rate would yield. So yielding more assets for you. And, I mean, yeah. And also the other thing too, anybody else in that community, if they buy more of those assets, it's like, that's like the ultimate raising of the wave, or raising of
the value
tide
goes up, the more people that get in.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So it's like, if like, which beats the crap out of affiliate marketing, because it's like, yeah, anybody that comes in, like, I'm always going to win. So it's like everybody's winning in that situation. So it's really interesting. And like, I'm again, full disclosure, I'm very new to learning about this. So I might not have, excuse me, I might not have the answers to all the questions about how this works, but I am like aggressively learning more because I'm so intrigued by it. And I do believe that this is, my macro belief is, I do believe that this is the modern economy. This Web3 is the future. And I think that focusing on understanding what it is and how it works now today, when it's still very new, it's in its infant years. This is not
the pioneer time. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is a time where the people who decided to really dive into this early and become familiar with it, when it does hit mainstream even more, they're going to be sitting in a very good place in life, I believe. Yeah.
Well, I mean, because I'm listening to what you're saying, and I hadn't really heard anything of this. Like, I know about Bitcoin and that type of stuff a little bit, but just even from my sales mind and business background, I can see how this could be used in my limited. We've had 5-10 minute conversation on it. What happens when people younger than you and I, because again, we are a little bit older, that are used to being on the internet, they're engulfed in this world. That's probably where we're going to have to go to get them. So this, like you said, it's like the revolution of, maybe one day there'll be a Jake coin and a Joe coin. I'm just making that up. You'll probably have a better name than Jake coin. Maybe not. Maybe you like Jake coin. But, it makes sense, because I was just thinking of like the exclusive clubs or the different parties that people want to be a part of. Well, now you can get access, but it still has value like gold would, compared to just paper money. Once you pay, it's gone. So that is intriguing. Yeah. How did you even get into that? How did you find out about that? Did you just stumble on it, or?
It started showing up everywhere around me. And there were just people in my network that, like, there was one guy in my network like last year, and I've been acquainted with him for a year or over a year now. And actually excuse me, I had him on my podcast. So this is like not like a random person. This is like somebody I know. He got into trading and had done started with $80 trading, like, they call them shit coins. Sorry, I don't know if I can.
Oh, you're good.
It's okay.
You're good.
They call them shit coins. And, but he just had a methodology on how to audit them and turn $80 into over 10 million in less than a year.
Oh, wow.
Trading these coins, getting like 400, 500x, super, 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 super risky stuff. Like, you really got to know what you're doing. But he used to trade he used to I think he did that day trading on penny stocks. So I saw that, and I'm like, and he got a lot of attention for that. And then there were some other people, like there's another guy who I personally follow named Nick Peterson. And that's actually where I do a lot of my staking, my yield farming is through his platform because it's safe and the returns, like I'm getting, 570% APR on my investment through staking on his exchange. So I was like, wow, that's significant. And it seems, I've done like all my homework looking at, his audits and everything. Everything looks safe here. Obviously there's always a risk, not financial advice. You always got to
I was
put
about to
that
say,
out there.
full disclosure, we're talking about some new technology. We are not condoning or telling anyone to do this. All this stuff has risk. Like I used to sell oil and gas investments to the top 5%. They had to be accredited. Super high risk, but super high reward. Like Jake is saying, do your homework. Look into it before someone says, hey, give me $5,000. Don't do that. Do your research, know what you're talking about, and, connect with people that can help you. I just want to put that out there. That way, if someone listens and says, Jake and Joe, no, we did not. We said, do your research.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Super important disclosure there. And even like with, Nick, who I was following, he, very knowledgeable. I mean, I spent a considerable amount of time researching him before I even did any investment into his ecosystem. For that reason, for exactly you do. Because if you don't do your research, if you just ate money into, some big thing that you think is just going to like make you rich, you're going to get wrecked. Like you're going to get wrecked. And, not financial advice. That's just life advice. Doing that will get you wrecked. So you need to learn, but I think that, going back to answer your question, I just had been exploring through my network, just continue to explore it. And the more I explored it, the more I bought into it. And, with anything, like when you understand something and the more you understand it, the more you can believe in it, the more you are confident in it. But it is a very, very deep space of activity and opportunity. There's a lot there. Like you start going down that road, it's bring your camping supplies because you're gonna be down there for a while. You're gonna be there for a while, and you might need to stay overnight somewhere. Bring an extra set of clothes because it's definitely a deep space, and there's a lot to learn. And it can be very rewarding if you know what you're doing.
No, and something I wanted to mention there, because you said I had him in my network. So I kind of want to shift there a little bit and talk a little bit more about networking as well, because what I have found for me is network matters. And, you always hear the cliche, your network is your network. It's true, but really that's just, leveling up and connecting with the right people. But I've found for me with my network, it's opened up a ton of opportunities because of the people I'm starting to hang out with, the events I'm starting to go to. How important has networking been to you? I mean, with this one thing for sure, but I'm assuming in other areas as well.
Oh my gosh, my first business, the whole business was built off networking. So I'll use because the first my lighting company is a really good example of that. Special events industry, especially. And it's funny because this is like brick and mortar days for me, and I wasn't really online very much. I had like a Facebook page that I barely updated and whatever. But the way I grew my business was I would go to venues. I would speak with event planners, catering is big four is like venues, planners, caterers, and rental companies. And what I would do is I would collaborate with them and create basically strategic partnerships. It's like, listen, I'm the lighting company. I can help you out and in this capacity. And then from there, we can develop this relationship. So everything, that's how I built my business. I didn't have like social media content or any of this fancy tech stuff. It was roll up the sleeves, go out and talk to people and build relationships and put together, ways that we can work together. So like with venues, I had this like little pad folio that I took photos of before and after and different portfolio shots of their space when it was lit to show the transformation. So, when it came time, you'll appreciate this as a salesperson. when, you know, because that's how I got my sale. It's like the clients would show up to the venue, and the venue was like the first line of defense, or first one, they were the first in line. So, you know, when they would do the walkthroughs and talk about space, they would have questions, and the venue would naturally the topic, or the like, what are we going to do for your decor and setup?
Yep.
Well, we really want to do something about the lighting in here. Who do you recommend? Oh, well, here's the company we recommend. So I'm like, okay, I'm thinking about like that exchange of recommendation. Like, I want to make it as easy as possible for them to recommend my company in that moment. So I would think about that point in time and say, what could I do to stand out? Because there I had a couple competitors. I didn't have anybody like super direct. We were very specialized, but I did have competitors. There wasn't just my card being thrown in the mix. It was mine and maybe one or two others. And this is something I think is really important for people to think about too in sales, like especially in that like exchange, like when that like, what does a referral look like? Like, what does that conversation look like when people refer you? So I was like, all right, this is what I'll do. Instead of giving them a business card, I'll give them this like little pad folio, and I'll put all, it's like where you open it up, like the video starts playing inside, and it shows like a little slideshow of the room and then different photos. And then on the left side had a little pocket where they can take a takeaway. And it's like, okay, you give that to a client, and they didn't keep it. They held on to it, looked at it, took the takeaway and left. Or you give them a card. Which one's going to get more attention? Obviously the one that's showing the portfolio and the thing that they want to see. So it was like, that made the venue look more like prepared, and like like it made them look good to the client, because and they loved it. They were like, this is so great. This makes our presentations go better. They get excited when they can see the room transform. And obviously for us, you know, we're winning because we're getting the business, and they're sending it to us, and we're collectively working together to take care of the client. So like that business taught me so much about relationships and how to cultivate them in a way where you can have success from it by helping somebody else be successful. So,
and I liked what you did there though, because when you said that, you're like, look, you could give the card out, or you can put a little bit more work into it, but it so much opened the referral for you because you had that special little thing you could give them. And then made it a lot easier to be like, okay, cool. Yeah, you saw my portfolio. Do you want to do business then? Well, if you just had that card there, now you had to still build all that value. You were building value right from the beginning of the relationship. I thought that was a key thing I wanted people to make sure they didn't miss in what you were saying there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So now, and I think this is something I've thought about now with networking and all, because I'm just a natural networker. Like I just do that. I connect people. I network with people. I've been doing sales for 15 years. And I'm thinking now with the events you can go to, and even the presence you have online, if you do it right, you can build business online, whatever business you want, as long as you keep people first and make sure that they realize they're important to you, that you're taking care of them. And I think that's the biggest thing I see most businesses mess up on, because they focus either on getting the sale or getting this or that right. But if you get the relationship with your people right, the sky's the limit. And then it gives you that access.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you know, it's funny about online. Like when I came online, like I was very new to just content creation. Like I never posted on Facebook or anything. I was just kind of more of I just went in to check to see what was going on in people's lives, really more than anything. And then going from that to like being more active and creating content and putting things out there, and like really working, you know, the communities and getting to know people, et cetera, et cetera. One thing I noticed is people, not everybody, but there is this tendency where it's easy to kind of like, I don't see, I mean, how do I want to say this? When you're not actually like face to face to somebody, and it's in the interaction is based on text, an emoji, or some GIF or whatever on a feed, it removes a lot of that human element. And I think it alters how people communicate too. So you have to remember, like, this is a good litmus test. Like if you're online and you're about to put out a piece of content, ask yourself, like, would I talk like this to somebody in real life? Or would I communicate like if they were standing right in front of me? Is this how I would talk to them? You might find some situations where you're going to go, No, I would never talk to somebody like that. I would never interact with somebody like that in real life. Well, then don't do it online, because that's how it's going to feel for them.
Yes.
Because that's how it's going to come off. Like, treat them like a freaking real human being. Like, that's, because if you don't, and you try to treat them like they're just some profile on a news feed, they're going to, uh, they're it's going to come off like poor, and they're not going to, it's not going to be receptive, and they're not going to lean into. Yeah.
Yeah. They're going to totally drop you. Yeah. I've noticed now, because like I said, I've been in this space, even starting to do anything business wise since May of last year. That's when I started everything up. And before then, I was on people's podcasts and doing different things. And I would interact with people that I connected with, that I felt had a relationship, and we were talking there, but there's so many different fake things. So if you're at a spot, don't try to be something you're not. People like genuine and real more than the glam. I think that's the biggest thing people need to realize. You don't have to be like the big Grant Cardones or the Gary V's. And I like Gary, don't take that wrong. But you're not there yet. Be you, because you'll draw your tribe. You'll draw your people. If you try to be someone else, you can draw people that you really aren't connecting with. And then you're not going to get them to buy from you anyway, because there's no connection.
And you got an advantage over the big guys too, the Gary V's and the big influencers, because one thing they can't do that you can do is give them individualized attention. I can't call it Gary V, and I can't hit him up in Messenger and have him respond back to me, but you can, and you can offer that support that they can't, or he never would be able to. So, don't forget, when it comes to, there can be that comparison sometimes of like looking at some of these bigger people and thinking like, how do I compete with that? It's like, man, you've got a huge competitive advantage.
Yeah.
And that's called individual attention, which sometimes that's just all what people want. They just want people to hear them. They want people to listen to them and help them figure stuff out.
It's totally really like with my coaching, with what I'm doing, 9 times out of 10, the person really knows what they want to do. They just need to have someone hold space for them. They need to have maybe a little bit of a different angle. Say, yeah, that makes sense. Maybe try this. But most of the time, it's just confirming to them, letting them talk it out from someone that doesn't have a vested interest. And I found with doing that, it's just, like you said, that opens the door where you don't have maybe the following of Gary Vee, but you can go so much deeper and help them so much more. And for me, impact matters more than anything else. Like my day job covers my bills. Do I want to build my business? Yes. Do I want to make it big? Yes. But really, I want to impact people and help people. That's my goal. And like for meeting you, in fact, I don't remember how did we connect? I think we have so many different friends. I think
it was through, I believe it was through George's Lighthouse group.
Well, I was friends with you before that because I recognized you when I came in. We might have, it might be, I network a lot and I connected with you somehow. Then when I got into George's group, I'm like, hey, I know Jake.
Oh, yeah,
I know that, but I don't remember exactly where. Dude, I have like 5,000 friends.
I know. So, I don't ever remember where they start either. It's funny. It's funny how that works, actually. No, because there's some people that, actually one of my really good friends who I'm actually collaborating quite a bit with in this like whole Web3 thing. I have no idea how him and I got connected, and he's like one of my best friends. I have no idea how we got connected or how we met. It was just like there. And then he started like commenting on some stuff, and then he sent me a message on Messenger. And then we just, he's just been my like online partner in crime ever since.
But I think it's when you do what you need to do and you're genuine and real and you reach out to different people, those connections just happen. Like I ran into George through someone that I don't even really interact with now, but like it just, they were in my life for a season. They're a great person. Again, not being negative, but now it's like, it led me to doing stuff with George, which is great, which I just went to the event in Montana and I met like 40 to 50 other really cool people, made great connections. I know you just went to another event in Montana, Flagner Fail. His name is slipping my mind, and he's Rob
Bailey. Yeah.
I wanted to say kill Rob Bailey because that was like the podcast thing, but I found that like I'm loving that the world is opening back up a little bit and we're being able to go and do events again. Like for me, that was just fun.
It's huge. That there's nothing. I don't care, what VR world that'll be created in the metaverse and the and everything we do online, which is actually the technology, love it or hate it, it has done some remarkable things in terms of creating opportunity. Of course, there's abuse of it. That is another story, but you'll never, none of that stuff is as amazing as it is, will never replace just good old fashioned being there with somebody in real life, shaking a hand, giving a hug, just vibing off each other's energy, having like that. You can't replace that. There's nothing that can replace that.
I almost think, because now we're going to go into my sci-fi nerd stuff. I almost think that people in the future, the rebels, are going to be the ones that they go and meet in person instead of doing all the online thing and everything. They're going to go and have a cup of coffee or a cigar or whatever it is that they want in this little old speakeasy type club and dressed up and just different stuff, just because, and like the world does that. We go one way with technology, then people want to go back a little bit, and it's just, but we can't lose that human connection or touch. That if we do, it's gonna suck.
I hope you're wrong. But a part of me thinks you're right about that. Like the thought of like that being that people are so sucked into technology and they're like in their little VR world, that going out and actually talking to somebody, meeting somebody is the exception, not the rule. It's like, whoa, I don't know. I
hope I'm wrong too. I do write a little bit of fantasy and sci-fi, so it might just be my brain's going woo-doo-doo-doo. But I don't know. I just always like looking at all the different angles. But that's why I'm liking the events again, because going and sitting and meeting and, like you said, hugging and talking and just engaging with people that are like-minded. You can do it online, but getting into an event and a group together is so much more. And then they get you to do crazy stuff. Because like when I was at George's event, Jake Blanchard and a few other guys talked me into doing a cold plunge. So I was in the water for 5 minutes. I was going to be in the water for a minute, but because they were there with me and talked me through it, once I got past the 90 seconds, I was good. I think you did a cold plunge while you were up in Montana as well.
I videoed a cold plunge.
You videoed it. Oh, you did. I saw the video.
Yeah, I was with a group of people. I would have done it. I have done cold water therapy. I just didn't have, like, I didn't know that people were doing that, because we went on a hike and they're like, oh yeah, we're getting on our whatever, and we got towels and stuff. And I'm like, number one, I don't have that. Number two, I'm just not mentally ready to like jump. Yeah. Like, I just don't feel like,
I hear you. But you had to be mentally ready. I'm with you.
I just wasn't, I wasn't prepared for that. But, there's a lot of benefits to that. That's a podcast topic in itself right there.
Well, maybe we'll have to have you come back and we'll do a podcast on, like, self-help, cold therapy, leveling up mindset. I mean, because there's so many different topics and ways we could go with this and all, but like, I'm liking the way we're going with it just today with like learning the new stuff and all, because now you have me thinking about, and I'm going to go look at this new online world of Web3, because I didn't know really much about it. So.
I'll tell you what, if you want to take, because there was a recent and like, especially like in the creator side, because I've mainly been looking at it from more of a investment side. And then recently I was thinking about how this works within like the creator economy. And there was a podcast episode with Gary Henderson that just like blew my mind. I will give you the link to that. And if you want to drop it in the show notes for sure. For anybody that wants to check it out. It's with Matt Wolf and Joe Fear of Hustle and Flow Charts. It's on their podcast.
Oh, sweet. I just those guys,
those guys are now big, and they completely shifted their whole business to that now. I guess all they focus on is Web3.
I literally heard them on again George Bryant's podcast today. Yeah, I was listening to it when I was driving into work. I had never heard of them. I know they're big. I just there's so many different people out there. You just don't always get them, but that's crazy.
Yeah, they're good guys, and they've got a great show. But they completely like scraped everything down to the bare bones, and they're like, we're building in Web3. They got a Discord. They're going to be launching a coin, I believe, for their community. They're creating their own economy, just like, and they had Gary on, and Gary, man, be ready to have your mind blown. Like, really, like, I would listen to this podcast episode twice, actually. Like, if like just listen to it once, you know how it is. Like, you rewatch a movie, you're like, oh, I didn't pick up on that part. Yeah, do that with this one, and it'll completely shift. Like the thing that like came to cross my mind when I listened is like, oh my gosh, this makes like the way I'm hearing this, the way I understand it, like why would anybody ever use fiat to like pay for people's services anymore?
Yeah, it
Which
doesn't
sounds
make
unreal.
sense. It
Like, it
doesn't make
does.
sense anymore.
It's
Yeah.
like, well, yeah, it's like why would I like make this an expense when I can just buy an asset and still get the same thing?
Well, and the thing is that this is still so super new. Like
Yeah.
I know it's just starting, but like you said, it's very new in a lot of ways. So if people get in now, just like, oh, I wish we would have gotten into Coca-Cola stock way back when it made, sold 25 bottles or something. It's the same type
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah. I it's I think just the whole way the whole world or the whole space works together is really
Mhm.
intriguing to me. Because everything can like tie back to some value, something of value. And anyway, I can go down. It's like I'm finding myself going down this like really deep explanation of like liquidity pools and how, how that works with valuation of coins and networks and blockchain and like the really like I would spend like if somebody really wants to learn about it, I would listen to that podcast episode just to kind of get your wheels turning a little bit. But then I would actually go out and find just learn the fundamentals, it is like speaking a new language
Mhm.
too. There's a lot of terminology and a lot of things like you need to learn the language of it. Like, so I would learn like if that's a space you really want to get into, I would spend some time to learn the language. I would find like one or two really good projects that you can focus on. Like for me, it's the Wolf Den with Nick Peterson. That's where I'm doing a lot of my farming and staking and his ecosystem. He's getting people's treasury set up like on his plate, like companies are parking their treasuries.
Mhm.
And which, and this is something he announces publicly. So, I mean, I don't know anything private anyway, but I mean, he's talking like hundreds of millions of dollars that are moving over to these treasuries in this
Yeah.
platform he's created. So this is big stuff that he's doing.
Mhm.
So that's a big project I'm following. I'm paying attention to it. And then what Gary's doing, because that's more like how can that individual creator, that influencer, thought leader, coach, consultant, what have you, how can they build communities that work within this like economy, this like little micro small economy that they can create with their communities, that's how they support and you can make a living off of it. So those are like the two projects I'm really focused. And that's what I would recommend is like find like one or two projects that really interest you.
Mhm.
Maybe it's those. Shoot, those are really good ones. Go after those. Good people. Look at the people behind it, and just focus on them. Like, don't get involved in like hundreds of projects or trying to,
Yeah.
you'll overwhelm yourself. Just pick one or two things and learn about what they do. Follow their content. Get in their community, and be part of it. And that's the best way to get started learning. So.
Yeah. And I think that's a good advice for anything you do. Like if you look at people that have made money in the stock market, in business and whatever, they did their research. They knew what they were doing. They studied it. They got connected with people. And then when they made the investment, they knew what they were going into. So it's risk, but it's
Mhm.
mitigated risk. So that makes sense. We have
Absolutely.
talked about a whole bunch. Are there any other parting words you have for my audience? It can be on podcasting, on mindset, on Web3, whatever you want.
I mean, I just think that, always seek alignment with what you do. If you're out of alignment, figure out why you're out of alignment and readjust. I mean, that's keep things simple. Simple can be boring, but and complexity can be sexy and fun. But simple is scalable. Simple gets results the quickest. Simple, there's peace of mind. Always hold space for yourself to simplify things in life. I think is something important. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that I could speak on in terms of there's a lot I've had, I'm 37 now. I've had, a fair amount just through the past 10 years. I've had a lot of experiences in business and, selling a company, growing a company. And then there's, the other thing too, and this is, I'll leave people with this because I know we kind of talked about this for a little bit when we were talking about the influencers like
Mhm.
Gary Vee and the big people. There's always going to be people who are further ahead than you, and there's always people who are going to be behind you. So just be focused on you and where you're at and know where that is, and love it and accept it and say, like when I was in Montana, I'm looking at what Rob had built. Rob is my age and he's like way further along than I am. And there was a part of me that was just like, man, I wish, if I would have started this time doing this, I could probably be where Rob is right now. And it's like, but you didn't, and you are here right now. So what are you going to do? Are you going to just keep thinking that, or are you going to do things now to continue building? So it's never too late. Always just be present with yourself and don't get caught up in too many comparisons that hold you back. Compare yourself to people to lift you up, not to hold you back. So
that's amazing.
And a positive. So that would be my parting words. And yeah, Joe, this is great. I appreciate the conversation. If you ever want to have me back on, man, I'd love to. I enjoy talking with you, and this has been fun.
Yeah, no, I've loved having you on, Jake. We'll definitely have to do a round 2. Yeah, I appreciate you, man. This has been really cool because I got to know a little bit more about stuff I didn't know. Because I was like, well, what are we going to talk about? Because I knew you did podcasting and certain things, and it just kind of opened up into a whole new world. So I appreciate you being on my show.
Yeah.
And for everyone listening, thank you again for listening to the 150K podcast, where we help take your dreams to 6 figures and beyond. Go out, share the message, send this to your friends, family, people that could, benefit from it. If you can also go and like, comment, and post on Apple, Spotify, wherever you do your podcast, I would love to hear from you. And until next time, be you, be present, and just trust your process.